the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 25th of August, 2020, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, Raila takes heat in COVID scandal. In the Standard, Raila's firm demand on funds probe. And in the Star, why Raila is under fire over COVID-19 billions.
Yes.
So it's all to do with the COVID-19 scandal.
And why Raila is at the center of it.
And why he's currently at the center of it.
Yep.
So in the Daily Nation, they basically chronicle how Raila, his stance has changed and his approach has changed in dealing with such matters.
Yeah.
And so they say from as far back as 2016, you know, the ODM leader was breathing fire and telling the DPP at the time, Keriako Tobiko, you know, you must investigate, you must, you know, put the people under investigation for the Eurobond, the 200 billion Eurobond. And they're saying now that there's been a change of stance. Now, this has been brought on by a statement put out by the ODM secretary, Edwin Sifuna, sorry, where they said, you know, the media is causing some furor and they're sort of sensationalizing this whole KEMSA matter.
Yes.
And so it criticized DCI for launching investigations into KEMSA, a process that it insists should happen after an audit. And so that's the key thing here, that an audit should happen first.
Yes.
And then now we
investigations
can,
thereafter.
you know, you know. So then, so he's basically saying the media needs to be more responsible. And Raila, you know, he's changed his stance because before we were used to tear gas Mondays. We were used to sort of these riots and protests happening every time an issue of this sort happens. But now he's saying we want the facts first before we can...
And that's some of what they outline in the Star. They talk about how in the past, the NYS scandals, 1 and 2, Eurobond, and early Afia House scandals, Raila ran sweeping in, relentless anti-graft campaign demanding affected officers step aside in advance to pave way for investigations. So we're seeing that the Raila we once knew...
Yes, and in the Standard, what they're telling us is that he wants now a systematic audit conducted. And he's saying the systematic audits are what they pushed for during the Grand Coalition years. ODM has a track record in terms of pushing that as a strategy for investigating corrupt issues. Grand Regency Hotel, Anglo leasing scandal, the Maze scandal, Nairobi Cemetery scam. All these scandals which ODM asked for for those agencies to conduct the audit first. And then after that is when people can step aside.
These must have been the
turnaround.
The fabulous rules of the handshake. I think these are the terms and conditions. Uhuru Kenyatta laid down and said, if Raila is going to come into this is...
And it's working.
But let's ask, I mean, once a turncoat, always a turncoat, I suppose. I mean, are we really surprised that, you know, the Raila of Monday is not the Raila of Sunday? I don't know.
When the facts change, you change your mind, you know?
Exactly.
So we have a 3-part criteria that we will use to break down those 3 headlines. We will ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? I know it's repetitive because this week, you know, this is all we've been hearing about. However, the new thing here is that Raila is at the center of the heat.
But I think one important thing that they've brought up that I think we need to continue harping on about is this, what they refer to as the media, sensationalist extravaganza of the media with half-baked information. And I think that as much as we may make fun of Raila for changing his mind, I think what he's recognized now that he is around government is that it's important to have the facts first. I think maybe he's realized the mistakes of his own past was that, you know, screaming before you actually know what the insides are saying.
Exactly. And let's not forget, we're going through a very serious pandemic. And the last thing you want is sort of misdirection and misinformation.
From our
that will
evil
just
media.
whip up bad feelings. So who do we give our winning headline?
Let's give Baba Man some...
for his firm demand on the
funds.
I
say the Standard.
I like that, for giving us direction. So there you have it, winning headline from the Standard. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? If we can begin with the Standard, please.
Yes, so in the Standard, we have a cartoon here of Donald Trump with his red tie extended out to read racism. And on the side is a flabbergasted Uncle Sam looking down at the tie with his hat removed. And Uncle Sam, as we know, has been a popular symbol of U.S. government in American culture and a manifestation of patriotic emotion. And the relevance here is that Trump has not had a very good record bringing in black people to positions of authority in the White House. Last week, the Democrats had a convention where they showcased diversity. As we know, Joe Biden's running mate is somebody who also of very diverse background.
Native Indian and Jamaican, I believe.
Kamala Harris.
Yes, that's right. And so the Donald Trump is trying to make up for his poor track record.
It's really funny. Like they have this thing in this in their White House, which is called the Intern Class. So they collect all these young people to become interns in the White House.
Yeah.
And if you look at the pictures of Barack Obama's intern class, they were very diverse. You know, you have all races, all ages, all disabilities and whatnot. If you look at Donald Trump's, it's
all
just
white.
Make America white again.
Make America white.
Well, he knows his target market in that case, right? Middle America and white.
Exactly.
If we move to the Daily Nation, we have a caricature of Johnston Muthama, Senator of Machakos, former sort of senator, sorry. And he has a long nose that is in the form of a branch. And on this branch is a chameleon. And the chameleon has a face of none other than Kalonzo Musyoka with a wiper on his head, signature wiper. And the chameleon is saying, I have my own mind.
Yeah.
Now, the chameleon is green and Muthama's turtleneck is yellow. Is it for his Kamba representation or for URP? We don't know. But the key characteristic here of a chameleon is someone, who blends seamlessly into any sort of occasion that they're in. And they pay close attention to the social cues and mimic the behavior of others.
Oh, it's also the same of is it a sociopath?
Yes, a very good sociopath.
Yes.
So Kalonzo has his own mind, but I don't think he has his own purse to bankroll his presidential ambitions. To be frank, and
he hasn't been building his war chest.
Whoever pays the piper calls the tune, and that is why even in the past, Muthama has been able to sway Kalonzo in one direction or the other, partly because I'm sure he bankrolls him.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that's what's made Kalonzo so unhappy. I think over the weekend, it was said, somebody tell Kalonzo that if it were not for me, he wouldn't have been made vice president. I personally negotiated for his position with retired President Mwai Kibaki, said Muthama. So, maybe he's not his own man.
Interesting. We park it. Let's look at the Star, please.
In the Star from Ozone, we have two caricatures, one of Baba Man Raila and then the other of DP RUTO. And they are standing side by side next to some sunglasses. And next to them is a sign that says, "This is a corruption-free zone." And the caption says, "Depends on which side of government you are viewing from." So for Baba Man, his sunglasses are covered, they're tinted. But for RUTO, they are open and he sees clearly. I guess the cartoon is maybe depicting the sunglasses as a corruption scandal. Maybe KEMSA is that of the moment.
Okay.
And that depending on which point of view you are looking at it from, your corruption isn't my corruption and vice versa. And the cartoon doesn't actually say who's right or wrong. It just says depending on your point of view.
But for the first time, he's drawn DP looking quite relaxed.
Yeah, he's not crying.
Yeah, he's pointing at
where I disagree with this one is that he's drawn the DP looking saintly, looking like a saint.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, quite relaxed, sort of like, this is your problem.
Like he knows something, I think it's a good cartoon. I like that it's neutral. It's saying, what the truth is.
No, it's not neutral. It's saying that the DP is clean.
I don't think it's saying he's clean because whether you're wearing glasses or sunglasses,
you can still see.
You can still see clearly. I think it's just a matter of perception, a matter of what you decide, clarity is.
And maybe it's for the first time that Raila happens to be on this other side of the sunglasses. And so he's also now apparently seeing through government lenses.
Exactly.
I like Ozone.
I like
it's giving us food for thought.
Yes.
JM is not convinced.
I'm
not feeling it. But...
Can we carry the day?
Carry the day.
There we go. The Star gives us our winning cartoon. And now for our final thought. But before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And now our final thought. In continuation with this week's theme, we are looking at strategy. And so today we are looking at the book entitled Predatory Thinking, a masterclass in Outthinking the Competition by Dave Trott. he actually wrote another Fifth Estate favorite, which is called 1 + 1 = 3. So from military decisions to marketing to business, there are always ways to define creative and fresh perspectives on life. So in this book, he wants you to let go of the common sense ways of thinking and to bring originality into your life. So first things first, this is not a theory-based book. It does not outline 10 formulas for predatory thinking. Instead, Trott guides you with his principles and leaves you to do what he says all predatory thinkers do. You have to figure the rest out for yourself. So he uses real-life anecdotes to demonstrate how predatory thinkers have done exactly that. Think for themselves. So this book is a compilation rather than a single work. And it may disappoint people who like business books that tell you what to do at the end of it. So I think that if we could just define what predatory thinking means. He says it is outsmarting the problem. When a predatory thinker hits a problem that they cannot solve, they do three things. They move upstream, they change the context, and they turn it into a problem that they can solve. And so they break the problem down into a smaller set of smaller problems. And then they find the weak link, the part that can be changed. And then they find a change that can fix the bigger change that they need to fix. And so he says the predator takes their cue from Confucius, a quote from him. You turn the handle the way it goes, not the way that it ought to go. So don't try to, shift something in a way that it doesn't want to. And maybe that's where the predator title comes from. Another definition of a predator can also mean a person who looks for other people in order to use them and to control them. So that's another way to look at being predatory. So the one story that I looked at came from part 2, and it's a story called Predatory Thinking. And it comes from World War II. So it tells the story of a young man called Robert Stanford Tuck, who was a World War II fighter pro. He was in the Air Force. And in 2 years, he'd shot down like 30 planes, and that was pretty high. And so in 1940, the story goes, was that it was pretty obvious that Britain was going to lose the war. And so Mussolini of Italy decided that he was going to bring on Italy into the German side at the last minute, because he wanted to get a share of the spoils, as Mussolini would do. So he decided to mount this raid on London. And so Stanford Tuck sees that the Italians are coming in. And the Italians wanted to show that they were very strong, that they had the force that other countries did not have. But Stanford Tuck says that he remembers being surprised that the bombers that the Italians came with were very small. And he said the word actually, he said they were slow, old-fashioned 3-engine airplanes. They were very pretty and maneuverable, but slow and undergunned. And so the Italian planes are very slow to maneuver. They don't come in with backup. They don't look the way that the German planes look. And so, of course, the British, bombed down all of these Italian planes. And they say in the story that it was customary, after bombing down a bunch of planes, that you would go look at the spoils of war, see what you had done, the damage that you had put on your enemy. And so Stanford Tuck gets into his car and drives out to go find the planes. And he says that when he got there, he was very confused. The plane was still intact. There wasn't a big explosion. And when he went to explore them, he found that the rest of the room of the plane was taken up by food and drinks. He says that there were bottles of Chianti, which is Italian wine, bread, salami, pastrami, and cheeses. And then he said he began to feel guilty, that he'd shot them down unfairly, that it looked like these Italians were just out for a day trip, that they just decided to go and fly around a little bit and then come home as heroes saying how they had beaten the Brits. It seemed that they were not part of the serious business of war. And so then Trott then takes us back to how he sees advertising. He sees that some of his clients are not part of the serious business of advertising. They don't want to steal up a market share. They don't want to have an advert that moves people or changes the world. They just want to do something that isn't controversial. And the problem with that is that you're in the wrong line of business, because marketing, like war, is a zero-sum game. He says, if you want something, you have to take it from someone else. In order for someone to win, someone else has to lose. And for everyone, you have to choose. Are you predator or are you prey? Because if you don't choose, the choice gets made for you, like the Italian Air Force in World War II.
Fantastic.
Good story. Dave Trott, one of my all-time favorites. He writes very well.
He tells a good story.
And he tells very good stories. And so I'll give you a story. Then this is a difference between strategy and tactics. And it's a story of the Second World War. In my view, the best story ever told of the difference between the two. And the author reminds us that strategy is the what and tactics is the how. So World War II was a story of two people, Trott tells us. Adolf Hitler and Winston Churchill. It was a story of the difference between strategy and tactics. Churchill was a strategist. Hitler was a tactician who thought he was a strategist. So Hitler didn't really have a big picture to concentrate on. And because he didn't have a big picture, he kept interfering in tactics. Every general and every admiral had to get every decision approved by Hitler before they could make a move. In fact, he was so disruptive that on many occasions, Hitler would often change tactics while the generals were in the middle of executing them. Churchill, on the other hand, had a big, simple strategy: get America into the war. And he knew that if America came into the war, Germany would be defeated. So Churchill never discussed tactics with his generals. He would give them a target and say, for example, I need a victory in North Africa. No excuses. Then he'd leave them to it. And if they couldn't deliver, he'd fire them and get another general. Germany during the Second World War had no strategic leader, therefore, and a bad tactician overruling the experts. Hitler had no strategy beyond winning battles. But because Churchill was not interfering with tactics, he could spend all his time working on strategy. And so he crossed the Atlantic numerous times to meet with Roosevelt. He applied his mind to how Britain could change American public opinion on the war. And courtesy of his short-mindedness, Hitler ended up making the biggest blunder of the war. He invaded Russia. And in fact, while his generals were moving their armies to attack in the north, Hitler changed his mind. He told them, actually, I think you should attack in the south. And while they were getting 2 million men to change direction, once again he changed his mind and said, you know what, maybe we should attack in the north after all. And so the armies wasted weeks and weeks going back and forth, and then it snowed, and Russia defeated Germany, and America came in to save the day, and that's how it ended. So in sum, what Trott is telling us from this story is that strategy is the big picture. Tactics are the little pictures that make up the big picture.
I like that.
Strategists are generalists and tacticians are specialists. The strategist oversees a lot of tacticians. He tells them what he wants done, but he doesn't tell them how to do it. In management, he tells us this is called tight targets and loose controls. And so what the author advises us to do is define your circle of competence and remain within it. If you are inclined to strategy, do the what and let the tacticians do the how. If you are a tactician, leave the what to the strategists.
Nice.
Very true.
Very powerful story.
Indeed.
I like it. So the other thing that he teaches us is the power of simplicity and also knowing your target market. So he says that a simple lie is often more powerful than a complicated truth. For most people, something that captures the imagination is more powerful than something that captures reason. Now he gives the example or the story of Margaret Thatcher and how she won 3 elections in a row because she knew justice, how to capture her target market. So he gives a story of how once she was giving an interview on the BBC, and the interviewer asked her why she had overrode her cabinet's advice for some financial policy. And she said something along the lines of, well, you know, when it comes to money, we women have always taken charge of running the household. So I think we are rather better at handling money more than men. And so of course a lot of people around England were like groaning at how crass that statement was, but you could hear many more housewives sort of nodding in agreement. They knew how they took a large part of their husband's paycheck and they ran their household with very little. They were able to spread it across school, food, groceries, all the things that the household needs. And so those housewives understood what Mrs. Thatcher was saying. It didn't matter whether it was true or not. What mattered was that the target market, in this case the housewives, wanted to believe it. And I think that's what's so powerful. And the other thing I think I got from this book was that everything is an advertising problem, whether you're in advertising or not. Everything is an opportunity to be creative, and everything is a chance to get people to do or think how you want them to do or think, right? And so how you get around this is to ask what's in it for them. And if you can answer what's in it for them, then you can message people the way that they need to be by very specific targeting. So I thought this was a very interesting book. on a day where we had a winning headline from the Standard and a winning cartoon from the Star.
Let me pass.
Thank you. I want to leave you with this, which is a favorite quote, I think, of the Fifth Estate. In every interaction, we create a reality, we misinterpret it, and then we reinforce it. As the author Anaya Nin says, we see things not as they are, but as we are. So when you plan strategy, remember that. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV, GoTV, Pan Future, and